Shavua Tov, in recent days, certain events have taken place in Israel that I feel should be addressed. And I would like to use the recent fires, as well as the biblical leprosy, as pedagogical aids to learn critical lessons, life-changing lessons, nation-changing lessons. First of all, the forest fires were horrible, but a miracle was contained therein. There was no loss of life, thank God. But why is that a miracle? Well, think about it, because had those fires happened 24 hours later, thousands of Israelis would have been out in the forests celebrating. So it could have been a greater tragedy. Instead, there was a miracle, but nonetheless, there was still a fire, and we have to learn from that. A story is told about the late great Rabbi Noach Weinberg, who excelled at bringing people close to Jewish tradition. He was talking to a young man who claimed that he had no need to repent or join the yeshiva because, as he said, God does open miracles for me, I'm good. And he told the rabbi about one of those miracles. He'd been riding his motorcycle on a curvy mountain road when a truck coming the other way had suddenly swerved into his lane. He turned to avoid the truck. His motorcycle flew off the road and crashed way down into the deep valley below, but he got caught on the branch of a tree and was unharmed. So you see, he said to the rabbi, God does miracles for me. Without batting an eye, Rabbi Weinberg responded, and just who do you think sent the truck in the first place? The young man enrolled in the yeshiva. And so yes, there was a miracle, but there was a fire. No human being understands God's reasonings, but we do have a responsibility to seek out lessons from what happens in our world. Fire, in the lexicon of our great ethical teachers, is a parable for division and disunity. When the Torah says, do not burn a fire on the Sabbath day, it is interpreted to mean we must preserve peace and avoid strife on that holy day. And my teacher, the great Rav Aaron Soloveitchik, was wont to remind us that the real fire of Sinai, as symbolized by the famous burning bush, sheds warmth and sheds light, but does not destroy anybody. So I'm aware that there was an incident recently where a ceremony was held that many felt was deeply offensive, and at the same time others came and perpetrated violence upon that group, and they promised more violence should such events happen again. So I want to say that we do not control what other people say or think, but we do control our own behavior. And while we are certainly within our rights, and sometimes we must argue with our minds and with our mouths, but never with our hearts and with our hands. The only time we should be using violence is when we need to fight to protect Am Yisrael from enemies who seek to destroy us. But on each side of any particular issue, there are people who have very big hearts, even though their philosophies may be deeply flawed. Jewish tradition teaches us that a shochet, somebody who is a ritual slaughterer, should also strive to be the cantor in the synagogue. Why? Because his main profession involves cruelty, and that could impact his character. Therefore, he should engage his attribute of mercy by begging mercy on the congregation as the leader of services to keep himself in a proper balance. And with that introduction, we come to the fascinating commandment of the biblical leper. The rabbis are clear. This is not a disease, it is a divine consequence of Lashon Hara, of evil speech. We learn this from Miriam, who was stricken with this same leprosy when she spoke ill of her brother Moses and his wife. So anyone with this biblical malady must assume they are guilty of Lashon Hara, of evil speech. But there is a phraseology in this commandment which is quite shocking. It says that if a person has these blotches on their skin, the Kohen, the priest, comes to examine. And if the person's blotches meet the criteria, the Torah says, the Kohen makes him impure. What? Look at that language. It doesn't say that the Kohen declares him impure or diagnoses him with tzarat, with impurity of leprosy. It says that the Kohen actually makes him impure. That is the simple reading of the verse. What is going on here? The Medrash tells us a charming story. There was a spice salesman wandering through the marketplace with an attractive sales pitch. Who wishes to purchase the elixir of life? And when the great Rabbi Yanai heard him, he called him over and said, I wish this. What is it? The salesman said to Rabbi Yanai, this is not for you and scholars like yourself. But the rabbi insisted, so the salesman showed him. It was some verses from the book of Psalms. The first verse was the sales pitch. Who is it, says the psalmist, that desires life and loves his days to see only good? Then comes the secret and the cure. Guard your tongue from speaking evil and your lips from speaking deceitfully. Stay away from that which is bad and do that which is good. Search for peace and pursue it. That's the medicine, the elixir of life. Rabbi Yanai was amazed. I have always known these verses, he said, but I never knew how simple this was. This must be what the Torah means when it says, Zot Torah HaMetzorah. This is the Torah of the leper. Now we have to ask, when we hear this story, why was Rabbi Yanai amazed? He himself said that he knew these verses. What did the salesman add that so inspired him? The great Chafetz Chaim, Rabbi Yisrael Meir HaKohen of 100 years ago, made the laws of evil speech central to his teachings. He wrote books on it, and he spoke about it all the time. And he explains that there are 3 types of evil speech. The first one is an obvious one. It is out-and-out slander. Somebody makes up something terrible about someone else and goes around ruining their reputation. There's no doubt how evil that is. The third one is called rechilut, or gossip. But it's not the gossip of, this one's dating that one and so forth, but rather it is when a person tells someone else that a third party has been slandering them. Reuven tells Shimon that Levi said bad things about Shimon. The goal of this is to make Shimon and Levi have a fight, to tear them apart. So this is not quite as evil as slander, as Motzi Shemra, but it's still clearly a bad thing to do, and everybody knows it. But the middle category is the most misunderstood. It is the one actually called Lashon Hara, or evil speech. And this is when the person shares a negative thing about somebody else that is actually true. And so they may think, well, it's true, therefore I'm allowed to say it. And not only that, they may even think it's a good thing to say it. Shouldn't people know how bad that guy is? He did such and such a thing. I'm not lying. I know this to be true. And yet this is still Lashon Hara, evil speech, which is completely forbidden and very severe and brings about tzarat, at least in the biblical times. In the Torah, we have these different types of evil speech hinted at. A person who becomes 100% leprous with no living flesh at all on their body does not become impure. Does not become impure. Now that seems illogical. If somebody who is 80% leprous becomes impure and gets sent out of the camp for 7 days to reflect, somebody who is 100% leprous should certainly be impure, and yet it is not so. Why? Because this is similar to the Motzi Shemra, the one who slanders, who knows they're doing a bad thing. A person who has become completely leprous is either beyond help or has hit rock bottom and is certain about themselves that either they repent or they don't. They don't need to be declared impure to make that happen. But the one who still has healthy skin, that's the one who is in a dangerous situation, because they may believe that they're not all gone, and even maybe that they're saying good things when they tell this truthful but bad information about someone else. So what does the Kohen do? He declares them impure. Declaring someone impure is not the end, it's the beginning of the cure. Without that declaration, the person will never be on the path to reflect and to improve. So the Kohen indeed makes them impure by calling their attention to the speech that they misused in such an egregious fashion. Until this time, the person may believe they're a fine person. And so I believe that this is what impressed Rabbi Yanai. The commentary Akedat Yitzchak suggests that the salesperson was remarkable not because of what he was saying, but because the fact that he was saying it out loud in the marketplace to anyone who would listen. He was proclaiming this with all of his energy, and he's saying this is not just one of the 613 commandments. This is central to living life itself. The rabbis say that one who speaks evil speech is as if they have violated all the 5 books of Moses, because there are examples of evil speech in all of the 5 books. And thus Rabbi Yanai ends with the phrase from our Torah reading, Zot Torah HaMetzorah, this is the Torah of the leper. The use of the word Torah also appears 5 times in this section. And the word Torah means teaching. The laws of the leper, and by extension the laws of evil speech, must be taught and taught and taught again. That's what inspired Rabbi Yanai, what this salesperson was actually doing. And even when we think that we are speaking evil as a mitzvah, when we know that what we are saying is technically true, we need to bite our tongues, and we must do this to preserve our very lives, because a life of only seeing the bad is a miserable one to live. May we be blessed with peace, with unity. May it extinguish all destructive fires, and may the true fire of Sinai burn proudly, shedding warmth, shedding light, and preserving the people of Israel.